Hi, Spacepan. I've never tried lemongrass tea.
Thank you so much for the shout out, Chantel. And now you should go away because we're going to talk about something besides food. It's another episode of the most appropriately named show on the internet, Pseudo Intellectual, starring Lauren Chen, who named her show Pseudo Intellectual because she's not. First, I think it's important that I give some context as to why I'm even bothering to make this video, because I do agree with most of what Lauren Chen says in the video. I think most of it's, fairly non-controversial. However, she included this thumbnail with Dr. Cantor's photo on it, pointing to him saying he's a pedophile apologist and making a disgusted face. So I thought, oh, well, I guess I better take a look at this and see if she said anything or has a smoking gun or whatever, like to see what justifies this characterization. And spoiler alert, nothing. She doesn't offer anything. It's completely ridiculous. So even though it's not really a focus of the channel, I feel like, I don't know, there's a very small number of people who seem to be able to look at this issue at least a little bit dispassionately, which is something that I think is very necessary. And if you think about it, we talk about all kinds of serious issues on this platform, but for some reason, particularly with issues of pedophilia, with maps, with whatever, there's just absolutely no ability to think rationally whatsoever. And I'm going to prove that. But first, the context is that about a year and a half ago, Shu had made a video where she deceptively reordered and clipped out parts of a video Omnizoa did. And she did this to deliberately smear him as a pedophile. And I called her out on it. And I realized that, I don't know, it's like, I guess it's a gift. I have the gift of being able to look past a false accusation. And this is something that I think people within the manosphere should be fairly sympathetic towards, since a lot of what we do is like talking about people who are falsely accused of rape, right? And we wouldn't characterize that as destigmatizing rape. And so we understand all of the relevant nuances involved with bringing some balance to the conversation. And I do think that this is kind of the next step of that. So I'll link to my shoe video if you haven't seen it, but Lauren Chen also references that video because she understands that she's pretty late to the party, and I'm not exactly sure why she decided to make this video now. Besides, I suppose, the angle of criticizing Twitter as becoming like a new safe haven for pedophiles, I guess. And I guess that angle of the video is a little bit interesting. She's adding something kind of new to the discussion. But what I want to specifically focus on here is the part that I take some issue with, which was her mischaracterization of what James Cantor was saying.
Then we have a Dr. James Cantor, who once again was a signatory of the letter saying, oh no, this is about getting pedophiles treatment. He said, in regard to pedophilia, I can live as an openly gay man because the prior generations did it for me. I feel a duty to pass it forward. Here he is straight up conflating what gay people used to go through in the past with what pedophiles currently go through, and he wants, apparently, in the future, pedophiles to be treated like gay people now. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that is exactly what he's saying, which is confusing, because if you claim you want pedophiles to go get help, but you compare them to gay people, and gay people now don't go to therapy, and being gay is not classified as a disorder, but pedophilia is now. Are you saying that needs to change? This seems like a bit of a mixed message from what was written in the letter.
Her entire argument here rests on treating something that might be in some ways analogous as being completely equal. And if she were to stop being so emotional, then she'd be able to realize that this is her style of reasoning. I also think maybe, if she's legitimately interested in having this question clarified, what she could do is do a tiny bit of research and find, oh, look, here's a 2-minute clip of James Cantor clarifying this exact question on YouTube where she has uploaded this video. But no, she'd rather use that time to take his photo and put it into a gay little clickbait thumbnail because this is what intellectuals do, okay? This is some serious intellectual shit.
How do you, because you say we should help them. I mean,
Yep.
how do you help a pedophile stay on the straight and narrow?
Exactly what an individual pedophile needs in order to stay celibate depends on him. Some of them do very well with sex drive reducing medications. For a lot of these people, it's easier to live without a sex drive than a sex drive that they have to constantly suppress. The best prevention for most of these people really is to give them whatever it is they need to help in their individual situation. For some people, it's medication. For some people, it's basic psychological support. These are people who have to live, their entire lives alone. They're not going to be in romantic relationships, and they often fear coming to professionals. They fear coming to psychologists or psychiatrists because they think they're going to get reported.
So there's a clip from the video directly refuting her retarded interpretation of his tweet, and we even have a clip from the exact same video that clarifies what he probably meant by it.
Is there such thing as a non-harmful pedophile?
Oh, absolutely. The virtuous pedophiles, practically by definition, are non-harmful. The only pedophiles that we really ever hear about are the ones who cause harm. That's what brings them to attention. It's the report, it's the disclosure of the crime, it's the victimization of the child. Those are the ones that hit the news. But pedophile wakes up, goes to work, comes home, has a glass of wine, watches the news and goes to bed. That never hits the news. So even though those are the majority type, or at least we have every reason to believe that those are the great majority type, they're certainly not going to come out as pedophilic, so we can say, so that we can see that the offending ones are actually the minority. We've driven the positive ones so far underground that we have no idea what the denominator is.
I take issue with the term virtuous pedophile, but since most people don't honor the ethics morality distinction, I can see how that became the popular term for, I guess I would say, ethically permissible pedophiles. But I think that's beside the point. I think regardless of whether or not you like that term, it's ultimately a cosmetic issue. It's very clear what he means by that. And I think the comparison being made in the tweet that Lauren Chen first referenced is that homosexuality used to have an inherent criminal association, and that's what needed to be decoupled. We needed to take a step back and say, what aspect of this is non-harmful? What aspect of this should be ethically tolerated, even if it's violating people's personal morals? Now, I genuinely believe that the overwhelming majority of people would prefer to see more children harmed if it means lynching more pedophiles. As in, they would actually be okay using children as bait to round up more pedophiles, rather than taking a route that is more immoral, a little bit more gross, but more ethically permissible, which would be to let all of the pedophiles come out and have their child sex dolls, and to put things above board in such a way that it would be easier to monitor things and easier to control and easier to clamp down on behavior that's not ethical. In other words, I think that when we have a trade-off where you can have more unethical behavior in order to preserve your moralism versus being more tolerant of things that are immoral in order to prevent more things that are ethically impermissible, I think that the latter is preferable.
And Dr. Kanner has also at one point said, pedophilia is not inherently wrong or harmful. Child molestation is. The common error is that people mistake pedophilia as a synonym for child molestation. If pedophilia is not inherently wrong or harmful, why should there be any inherent need for a pedophile to get treatment?
So since that she knows on a really basic intellectual level that she can't say anything to go against the distinction between pedophile and child molester, but this is really emotionally uncomfortable for her. So that's why she's focusing in on this idea that everybody who's minor attracted should be required to have a specific kind of psychotherapy regardless of the situation, rather than saying that's probably a good idea, but being open to the fact that maybe that's not going to be the best form of treatment or the best thing for some people to do. Now, I think it's clear that when he says inherently wrong or harmful, I mean, it's clear that it's harmful in the sense that a lot of other mental problems are harmful. Like a person with anxiety, we can understand that that's harmful to them in their daily life, but we wouldn't say that it's necessarily wrong. You know, you don't shame them for it. And I think that that's a little bit of what's being muddled up here. But yeah, this idea that she's taking this to mean there's absolutely nothing wrong with them and none of them should get treatment or whatever, it's very silly. What I find especially perverse about this whole video is that it just seems very, very transparent that Lauren Chen is using psychotherapy as a means of satiating her moral outrage. She's using it in a retributive sort of a way because she wants to lynch all the pedophiles, right? But it's easier to just say, oh, well, they should all get therapy, because then she can fake pretend that she's still interested in practical solutions that help children. And ultimately, I think that, you know, her opinion on this, it's so shallow and so one size fit all that the idea that she's actually interested in preventing this from happening and actually interested in helping children, I don't know, I'm not buying it at all. And, you know, if it's going to be a question of whose body of solutions make more sense and are going to be more practical and reduce the harm towards children between James Cantor versus someone whose show is named Pseudo Intellectual, I'm going to take his opinion over yours.